Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to just close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving, obviously. And imagine you're standing in a place that feels truly, deeply old.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a ridge in the Andes, looking down at the clouds. Maybe it's a stone circle somewhere in the British Isles with the wind just whipping around you.
Right. You can almost feel it.
You can. Or maybe it's deep in an old-growth forest
Right.
where the trees feel like they're sort of watching you.
It's a very specific atmosphere.
It is. And it's not just a visual thing. It's somatic. You get this vibration in your chest. It's a literal physical sensation. It's that nagging feeling that you have forgotten something.
Right.
Not that you don't know it, but that you forgot it. Like a word on the tip of your tongue, but instead of a word, it's, I don't know, the entire history of the human species.
That is precisely what we call primal instinct, that resonance you feel. That is the starting point for everything we were about to get into today.
Oh.
Because the source material we're doing a deep dive on,
Right.
it's a documentary called The Primordial Code, it argues that this feeling isn't an accident.
Yeah.
It argues that we have forgotten, or maybe more accurately, that we've been made to forget.
And that is the hook. We are embarking on just a massive journey today. We're looking at a source that covers a geographical and chronological spread that is, frankly, intimidating.
It's huge.
We're going from these Neolithic towers in Sardinia to the, well, very controversial pyramids of Bosnia, then down to the stone circles of South Africa, and then, and this is the weird part, right into your own vegetable garden.
It is a sweeping narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And the core thesis is challenging, to say the very least.
Mm-hmm.
The force argues that humanity hasn't just, advanced in a straight line from banging rocks together to using iPhones.
Yeah.
It suggests that we've actually evolved away from our roots, that we've become, and I'm quoting here, so smart that we've become stupid again.
I love that line. So smart we've become stupid. It implies that in our rush for, combustion engines and digital clouds, we've left behind a technology that was arguably more advanced.
But in a completely different way.
In a totally different way. We're talking about sound, frequency, natural energy, things like that.
And the mission of this deep dive is to explore that alternative narrative. We're going to look at the evidence presented for this advanced ancient engineering, the theory that this knowledge has been deliberately suppressed to keep us in a state of dependency.
Right.
And what it all has to do with giants, aliens, and copper coils.
Now, just a quick heads up for you listening. The source material we are covering today challenges pretty much everything. Mainstream archaeology, geology, evolutionary biology, it's all on the table.
It really is. We're talking about completely rewriting the timeline of human history.
So our job here isn't to tell you this is the absolute truth. Our job is to walk you through this narrative, the narrative of the code, and just see how all these dots connect.
Precisely. We are stepping into a world where history is viewed not as a record of facts, but as a story written by the winners, or perhaps the controllers.
So suspend your disbelief for the next hour or so, and let's see where this thing goes.
Let's do it.
All right, let's drop a pin on the map. The Mediterranean. Sardinia. Now, when I think of Sardinia, I think of, Italian vacations, crystal clear water, maybe some good cheese.
Sure, that's the common image.
But the source takes us there to look at these massive stone towers. They're called nuraghi.
The nuraghi are an absolute enigma, even to mainstream archaeology. These are dry stone towers, meaning no mortar, and they're shaped like truncated cones, like a beehive with the top cut off.
Okay.
The official academic dating puts them around, say, 1500 to 1800 BC. But the source suggests they're much, much older. And the sheer number of them is the first clue that something is, well, off with the standard story.
Right, because today there are, about 8,000 of them still standing, which is already a lot for one island.
That's just what's left, after thousands of years of looting and erosion. The original estimate is that there were around 30,000 of them.
30? Wait, 30,000?
30,000.
Let's just pause on that math. Sardinia isn't a huge continent. 30,000 stone towers. That's practically urban density.
It applies a massive organized civilization.
Yeah.
And these aren't just, piles of field stones. They are built with massive basalt boulders.
Basalt is volcanic rock, right? It's incredibly hard.
Yes, exactly. And it's extremely hard. We're talking about a Mohs hardness scale that just destroys standard tools. Some of these boulders weigh tons.
So the classic question applies here.
It does. How do you lift a 3-ton basalt block 30 feet into the air without a modern crane? And more importantly, why use basalt in the first place?
That was my next question. Why go through all that trouble of quarrying volcanic rock?
Well, the functional answer is durability. It lasts.
Right.
But the source argues it's about the magnetic properties. The salt is rich in iron and other ferromagnetic minerals. So if you're building a machine to interact with the Earth's magnetic field, basalt is a very specific, very intelligent choice of material.
So the argument is that these aren't forts or houses, they're components in a larger system.
Right. The source claims these structures have perfect astronomical alignments. They aren't just defensive towers, they are connected to a megalithic web that links to similar structures in, say, Peru and Mexico.
A global civilization.
It implies a global civilization with a shared understanding of engineering, astronomy, and energy.
One of the things that really stood out to me in this section was the sacred wells. We tend to think of ancient wells as, just places to get water so you don't die of thirst. But the documentary describes them as, I don't know, almost like machines.
Therapeutic centers is the term they use.
Yeah.
The idea is that these people associated water with a mother goddess, but it goes beyond just religion. They believe the water, combined with the specific location and the stone structure, had healing properties.
And the visual they described was just wild. They talked about how during the solstice or the equinox, the light hits these wells in a very, very specific way.
Yes, this is that astronomical precision coming into play again.
Yeah.
Take the well at Santa Cristina. There's a hole at the top of the chamber, right? And at a precise moment, moonbeams will strike the water.
Incredible.
Well, during the autumnal equinox, around 11:00 a.m., the sun hits the water in such a way that if you look down into the well, your shadow is reflected upside down.
Upside down. Now, hold on. Isn't a reflection always sort of upside down if you look at it a certain way?
Not like this. The way the light enters the tholos, the dome, it creates a camera obscura effect, a specific optical phenomenon. The source argues this is completely intentional.
Okay, so what's the purpose?
It's meant to represent the subterranean world. It's a visual representation of accessing the invisible forces of the universe. It shows that these builders weren't just stacking rocks, they were orchestrating a psychological and spiritual experience.
So you go in there, the acoustics are resonating, the magnetic basalt is all around you, the light is hitting at a precise angle. It's like a sensory deprivation tank meets an MRI machine.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
And that brings us to the tombs of giants.
Right.
Now, this is where the name gets a little literal, but let's start with the structure itself. The source says these weren't just burial grounds.
And this is a major point of contention, right? The academic view is pretty standard. These are collective tombs used over and over again to bury the dead.
Correct.
But the source argues they were incubation chambers.
Incubation chambers.
Yeah.
It sounds very sci-fi, but it's actually based on practices that were described in ancient Greek texts.
Oh, really?
Yes. The idea is that young people or initiates would go into these tombs, which, remember, are massive stone structures, and they would sleep on these meditation chairs or stone stoves inside.
So you're sleeping in a grave to, what, to get smart?
In a way. The goal was to enter a specific state of consciousness where they could connect with the souls of their ancestors. It's a tool for, let's call it, spiritual technology.
Wow.
You lie on the stone, in the dark, surrounded by this specific mineral geometry, and you induce a lucid dream or an out-of-body experience.
So not a place for the dead, but a place for the living to commune with the dead. But then we have to talk about the name, Tombs of Giants.
Yes. Here is where it gets really, really interesting. The source doesn't think giant is a metaphor.
No.
They aren't talking about giants of industry or spiritual giants. They're talking about actual physical giants.
Right. The documentary presents claims of skeletons being found in Sardinia that are between 3 to 6 meters tall.
3 to 6 meters. Let's just put that in perspective. That's roughly 10 to 20 feet tall.
Biologically, that sounds like a nightmare. I mean, the square cube law says if you double a human's height, you octuple their mass. Their bones would snap under their own weight.
That is the standard biological rebuttal. Absolutely. A 20-foot human would have huge trouble walking, let alone building towers.
Yeah.
However, the source is adamant about the archaeological record. They cite specific finds and, more importantly, specific cover-ups.
The Church of St. Anastasia. This anecdote was wild.
It's a classic motif in alternative history.
Yeah.
The suppression of evidence. The story goes that during excavations under this church, which notably was built right on top of a pagan sacred well workers, found giant bones.
Right. And they moved them into the church to keep them safe.
Exactly. And the very next day, inspectors arrived.
Inspectors. It always sounds like the Men in Black, doesn't it?
It does. And just like that, the bones disappeared, vanished. The source argues this is a systematic cover-up.
And the reason being?
Because if you admit that giants existed beings with double rows of teeth standing 7, 8, 9 feet tall or more,
Yeah.
you break the standard evolutionary timeline taught in schools.
It doesn't fit the story.
It suggests a history that doesn't fit the Darwinian model we've all accepted as fact.
And they mentioned the Monte Prama statues, right? These famous statues in Sardinia that look almost like robots or aliens.
They do. But the source dismisses the statues as a kind of distraction. They say, look, the statues are just stone. An intelligent civilization wouldn't bury stone statues in 8-foot graves. They marry the actual giants.
So the bones are the real secret.
The claim is that the bones are the real secret, and they've been spirited away to, hidden warehouses to maintain the status quo of history.
It's the classic they don't want you to know narrative. But let's move from the islands of Italy to the forests of Bosnia. Because if you think giant skeletons are a hard pill to swallow,
Oh, yes.
wait until we talk about the Bosnian pyramids.
This is one of the most controversial topics in modern archaeology, period. We're talking
Right.
about Visoko, Bosnia.
All right.
And the central figure here is a man named Samir Osmanagic.
I remember when this story broke, it must have been around 2005. The man in the cowboy hat.
That's him, a very polarizing figure. He visits this town, sees a hill called Visochika, and has this moment where he just goes, that's not a hill.
To be fair, looking at the drone shots in the documentary, it does look incredibly geometric. You can see 4 distinct triangular faces. You see these perfect corners.
Nature rarely makes perfect pyramids that are also oriented to the cardinal points. But, visual identification isn't proof. The source then dives into the materials analysis, and this is where it gets technical.
Okay.
They dug into the soil and found these massive blocks. They call it concrete.
Now, we need to define concrete here, because the Romans had concrete, so it's not impossible for ancients to have it.
True. Absolutely true. But the quality is the issue. We measure concrete hardness in megapascals, or MPa. It's a measure of its compressive strength.
Okay, so give us a baseline. What's normal?
Modern concrete, the stuff in your driveway or standard building, is usually between 10 and 40 megapascals. High-strength concrete for a skyscraper might hit 60, maybe 80 MPa.
And the Bosnian samples?
Samples sent to 7 different materials institutes around the world tested between 74 and 155 megapascal.
155. That's military-grade bunker stuff. That's incredible.
It's exceptionally hard, and it has very low water absorption. It implies a mastery of material science that exceeds Roman concrete and rivals the best of what we can do in the 21st century.
And then there's the age. This is the big one.
This is the timeline breaker. They found organic material fossilized leaves sandwiched between the concrete layers. Radiocarbon dating put those leaves at approximately 29,000 to 33,000 years old.
33,000 years old. I mean, my history books say we were barely banging rocks together back then. We were deep in the Ice Age. We certainly weren't pouring high-tech concrete.
That is the fundamental conflict. The source claims this is the oldest pyramid ever discovered. And not just the oldest, the most precise.
More precise than Giza.
Far more precise. They measure the orientation to cosmic north. The Great Pyramid of Egypt is famous for its precision, right? It has an error of about 0 degrees in 3 minutes.
Which is already incredibly impressive.
The Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. An error of 0 degrees, 0 minutes, and 12 seconds.
Wow.
It is, according to the source, the most perfectly oriented structure on the entire planet.
Okay, so we have a super hard, super old, super precise pyramid. But why? What does the source say it does? Because they don't think it's a tomb for some ancient pharaoh.
No, not at all. They view it as a machine, an energy machine. And this brings us back to the Tesla connection.
Nikola Tesla. He always shows up in these deep dives, doesn't he?
He does, and for good reason. The source draws a direct line between the Bosnian pyramids and Tesla's research into what he called non-Hertzian waves, what we might call scalar waves.
And they have evidence for this.
They measured an energy beam. They claim to have measured a continuous 28 kilohertz energy beam shooting out of the very top of the Pyramid of the Sun.
They measured a beam. Okay, can we do a quick ELI 5 on scalar waves? Because that term gets thrown around a lot in these circles.
Sure. Think of standard radio waves, Hertzian waves, as ripples in a pond. They spread out and they lose energy over distance.
Right.
Scalar waves are different. They're longitudinal. They don't decay over distance in the same way. In theory, a scalar wave could travel from here to the other side of the galaxy instantly without losing power.
So if the pyramid is generating scalar waves...
It's a communication device, a cosmic antenna.
And the mechanism. How does a pile of rocks and concrete generate a beam of energy?
Piezoelectricity.
Pressure electricity.
Exactly. You take a quartz crystal and you squeeze it, it generates an electric charge. The source argues the pyramid is built over massive quartz deposits. There are underground water tunnels. Water flow creates kinetic energy and ions. The pyramid's immense weight presses down on the quartz. The shape focuses all that energy and shoots it straight upwards.
A cosmic internet.
It's the term they use. And it gets weirder. They found that the beam actually moves with the sun. The suggestion is that it's transmitting data to the sun and through the sun to other galaxies.
That is a wild concept, the idea that our sun is a router.
It reframes the entire purpose of these ancient structures. They're not monuments to dead kings. They are active infrastructure for a galactic civilization.
Wow.
And it's not just sending a signal out. It's affecting the environment locally. We have to talk about the tunnels.
The Ravnay tunnels. This was the part that sounded the most, I don't know, appealing to me personally.
The tunnels run for kilometers beneath the pyramid complex. And the measurements they took in there are just striking. They measured the concentration of negative ions.
Okay.
Now, for context, in your office or your home, the negative ion count might be 10 or 20 per cubic centimeter. In a fresh forest after rainstorm, maybe 1,000.
And in the tunnels?
Up to 80,000.
80,000.
Yes. It's described as a hyper-healing environment. The air is pristine, completely free of bacteria and viruses. People go there for therapeutic reasons. But there's a mystery inside the mystery here.
The closers.
The closers, right. The archaeology suggests two distinct civilizations. The first one built the pyramids and the tunnels maybe 30,000 years ago. But then, about 5,000 years ago, a second group, the closers, came in.
And what did they do?
They didn't just destroy the tunnels, they meticulously filled them up with loose material. They blocked them, completely sealed them off.
Why? Why would you build something so amazing and then spend so much effort to just plug it up?
That is the million-dollar question. The source mentions a stone found deep inside with runic-like symbols carved on it. The translation they offer is chilling.
What does it say?
The gate has been closed. We will have to defend ourselves and conquer until the cosmic gate is open again.
We will have to defend ourselves. That sounds like a desperate measure, like they were hiding the technology or maybe protecting humanity from it.
Or perhaps protecting the technology from a humanity that had lost its way. It paints this picture of a civilization in retreat, sealing off their power source before a dark age descends.
So we've got towers in Sardinia, energy pyramids in Bosnia. Now let's fly south, all the way down to South Africa. This is Michael Tellinger's turf.
Michael Tellinger has done extensive work on what he calls the stone circles of southern Africa. Now, if you walk past one on the ground, it just looks like a pile of rocks, a ruin, maybe an old cattle kraal.
But the perspective changes when you go up, doesn't it?
The aerial view changes everything. Tellinger claims there aren't just a few of these. He estimates there are 10 million stone circles in southern Africa alone.
10 million.
Yeah.
That's a dense metropolis. That's a civilization on an unbelievable scale.
It implies a massive population. And when you look from the air, you see they are connected by these channels. It looks for all the world like a circuit board.
Yeah.
A giant lithic circuit board spread across the continent.
And the theory is that this isn't for keeping cows, it's for generating sound.
Cymatics. That's the key concept here.
Okay.
Cymatics is the study of visible sound. If you vibrate a plate of sand with a certain frequency, the sand will form a specific geometric pattern. Tellinger argues that the shape of these stone circles corresponds to the shape of the sound frequency coming out of that specific spot on the Earth where they're built.
Whoa, so the Earth is like humming a note and they built a stone shape to match that note.
Exactly, to resonate with it. The stones themselves, according to the source, are often made of hornfels, and they wing like bells when you strike them. They're ringing stones.
And some of them are shaped like flowers. What's that about?
Yes. The source compares these flower-shaped circles to magnetrons. A magnetron is a component in your microwave oven or a radar system that generates the energy. It's a cavity resonator.
So the theory is that these 10 million circles were a power grid.
A continental power grid. They use sound and the Earth's natural resonance to generate immense amounts of free energy.
It seems to be the recurring theme here, doesn't it? Free energy. The ancients had it, and we somehow lost it.
And that leads us directly to the next section, sacred geometry and architecture. Because the source argues this technology didn't just disappear, it was co-opted. We see its echoes in the great cathedrals of Europe.
This blew my mind. I've visited cathedrals. I've admired the stained glass, the high ceilings. I never once thought I was standing inside a battery.
The comparison is striking when you break it down. The source explains that cathedrals are almost always built on what they call vortex points, places where underground water veins cross.
just like the sacred wells in Sardinia, just like the pyramid in Bosnia.
Precisely. The water movement creates an electromagnetic charge. The stone of the cathedral, usually granite or limestone, which has high silica content, quartz acts as a battery to store that charge. It's a giant capacitor.
But then you add the people, that's the missing ingredient.
The human element is crucial. You pack the cathedral with hundreds of people. They sing, they chant, they pray. The dome shape of the ceiling amplifies that acoustic energy. Gregorian chants aren't just random songs. They are specific frequencies designed to resonate.
That's a frequency amplifier.
Yes. And the spire. The tall spire acts as the antenna, the conductor. The source describes it as shooting a laser beam of focused energy out of the top.
So originally, these weren't just places of worship in the religious sense we understand today. They were energy harvesting labs.
Or healing centers, places where you could go to be recharged by the concentrated frequency of the earth and the community. The argument is that religion later took over these powerful sites and the technology, keeping the ritual but forgetting, or perhaps hiding, the original function.
Hidden by the holiest. It's a powerful image. But let's bring this down to earth. Literally. Because while cosmic internets and cathedral batteries are amazing concepts, I still have to buy groceries, and they are getting expensive.
This is where the deep dive gets practical. Electroculture.
Electroculture. It sounds like a 90s band name, but it's actually a farming technique.
It's the rediscovery of this same atmospheric energy technology, but applied directly to agriculture. The concept is incredibly simple. You don't need chemical fertilizers. You need to tap into the ether, the chi, the prana, the atmospheric energy all around us.
And the method they describe is surprisingly low-tech. I was expecting some kind of complex machine.
It's incredibly accessible. You take a wooden stick, you wrap a copper wire around it to create a coil and an antenna. A Fibonacci spiral is often recommended for the wrapping.
Okay.
You stick it in the soil next to your plants.
That's it, a stick and a wire.
According to the source, yes. The idea is that this simple antenna taps into the Earth's magnetic field and the Schumann resonance, that's the 7.83 hertz heartbeat of the planet. It channels that life-giving frequency directly into the soil.
And the results they claim are pretty spectacular.
The claims are bold. Vegetables growing 2 to 3 times larger, plants that are more resilient to drought, and, maybe most importantly, no pests.
They mentioned the Colorado beetles, right? That was a specific example.
Yes. The speaker in the documentary says that the copper-treated plants emit a higher frequency, a frequency that signals health. The beetles, which are essentially nature's garbage collectors, they avoid healthy plants. They only attack the weak ones.
So by raising the energy of the plant, you make it basically invisible to pests.
That's the theory.
So why aren't we doing this everywhere? I mean, if I can grow a pumpkin the size of a carriage with just a copper wire, why am I buying fertilizer from a big box store?
History, or rather, historical suppression. The source introduces a figure named Victor Schauberger.
Oh, Schauberger, the water wizard. I've heard of him.
In the 1930s and 40s, Schauberger supposedly proved that using copper farming tools increased agricultural yield significantly. He argued that iron tools, which we all use today, are magnetic and cause rust and decay in the soil. Copper, on the other hand, leads to growth.
But the powers that be didn't like that.
The story goes that the Bulgarian government, and likely others, suppressed this information. They were allegedly in bed with the emerging chemical fertilizer companies.
It's always about the money.
The logic is brutal but simple. If farmers can grow massive yields for free using copper tools and atmospheric energy, who buys the chemicals? Who buys the GMO seeds? Who needs this system?
Iron tools lead to rust, copper leads to growth. It's such a simple dichotomy, but it speaks to the broader theme of this entire deep dive: dependence versus independence.
Exactly. The modern system, the control matrix, as the source calls it, it relies on us being dependent. Dependent for our energy, dependent for our food, dependent for our health. Rediscovering this ancient tech breaks that dependency.
Which brings us to the big why. Why are we like this? Why are we, as the source puts it, a slave species? And for this, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, or I should say the alternative beginning.
The Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki. If you've spent any time in the world of alternative history, you know the name. But for those who don't, let's break it down.
This narrative comes from interpretations of the Sumerian clay tablets, some of the oldest writing in existence. The source interprets these texts quite literally. Anunnaki translates roughly to those who from the sky came down.
And they didn't come here for a vacation?
No. According to this story, they came for gold. The theory is they needed gold as a nanoparticle to repair their home planet's atmosphere.
Hmm.
But mining is hard, backbreaking work.
Even for space gods?
Apparently so.
Hmm.
The texts describe a mutiny. The lower-tier gods, the Igigi, essentially went on strike. So the commander Enki is the main character here, decided to create a labor force, a biological robot. Us, the Adamu. The source claims we are a genetically engineered species, a hybrid of the Anunnaki DNA and the existing hominids on Earth at the time.
And this wasn't some benevolent act of creation.
Not in this narrative, no. We were designed with specific limitations. Smart enough to take orders and use tools, but programmed with fear and obedience to keep us in line. We were purpose-built to be slaves.
This explains the fear part. The source talks at length about how easy it is to control humanity with fear. It's like it's in our source code.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? The source even links the Bible story of Adam and Eve directly to this.
Yeah.
The Garden of Eden wasn't a paradise, it was a biolab. An observation space to see if this new prototype species could reproduce on its own.
Will the female eat the male, I think was the quote from the documentary. They genuinely didn't know if we would function properly.
And the source draws a direct and pretty unnerving parallel to what's happening today. They mention ectolife, the concept of artificial wombs, genetic editing like CRISPR. The argument is they are doing it again. We are playing God now, just as the Anunnaki played God with us. It's a repeating fractal loop of history.
This leads us to the final and probably the most intense part of the documentary, the state of the world right now, what they call the control matrix.
Right. The source argues that the ancient slave programming is still active, still running in the background of our civilization. We think we're free, but we are stuck in a cycle of working, paying taxes, obeying elites, and fearing punishment.
They mention cancel culture as a modern form of this control mechanism. If you step out of line, if you say the wrong thing, you get punished by the collective, just like the Adamu in the mines.
And they cite the recent global crises, climate change, pandemics, wars, as tools used by the masters to manage the population through fear. When people are afraid, they look for a savior. They willingly give up their freedom for perceived safety.
It gets pretty dark here. They talk about the Great Reset.
Yes. The view presented is that powerful, unelected institutions like BlackRock and the WHO are forcing behaviors on the global population. The goal, according to the source, is to erase identity, erase gender, erase history, to make people hollow.
An oak without roots will never be able to develop into a sturdy tree.
Exactly. If you disconnect people from their origins, from the knowledge that they were once giants, or builders of pyramids, or masters of frequency, they become weak. They accept the slave state as normal.
But, and there is a but, it's not all doom and gloom. The source believes something is changing.
The awakening. This is the hopeful turn at the end. The source argues that despite all the millennia of suppression, human DNA itself is waking up.
It's resisting the oppression.
Yes. The quote is, when suppressed too much, DNA looks for a way out. The idea is that the cosmic gate, mentioned in those Bosnian tunnels, might be opening again. We are starting to remember who we really are.
And the solution they propose isn't fighting a war in the streets. It's surprisingly gentle, almost personal.
It goes right back to the garden. The solution is becoming self-sufficient, growing your own food with electroculture, connecting with nature, disconnecting from the fear narratives that are blasted at us 247.
The battlefield is the mind, and the prize is the soul.
If you can step out of the fear, if you can grow a potato that feeds your family without needing the supermarket, you become, in a small way, ungovernable. You break the Anunnaki code of obedience.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from giant skeletons in Sardinia to laser beam pyramids in Bosnia, all the way to a genetic origin story that reads like a sci-fi thriller.
It's a lot to process. But if we synthesize it, the thread that connects everything is frequency. The ancients understood that the universe is made of sound and vibration.
Right.
They built these incredible stone machines to harness it, for healing, for energy, for
Yeah,
communication.
we lost it. Or it was taken from us.
And replaced with a chemical, mechanical, digital world that keeps us dependent and disconnected.
So the core question this documentary asks you, the listener, is history a lie? Are we powerful beings who have been tricked into thinking we are small and weak?
It's the ultimate empowering conspiracy theory, isn't it? It tells you that the magic isn't out there somewhere with aliens or gods.
Yeah.
It's in your own DNA. It's in the soil in your backyard.
I keep thinking about that cosmic internet idea. If those pyramids really are transmitting data across the galaxy, What happens when we finally figure out how to log in?
And that's the provocative thought to end on, isn't it? If the network is still active, and we are just now waking up to its existence, who or what is on the other end of the line? Are they the inspectors waiting to shut it down? Or are they the ancestors waiting for us to finally pick up the phone?
Something to think about next time you're in the garden with a copper wire. That's it for this deep dive into the Primordial Code. It's a wild ride, and whether you believe it all or just find it a fascinating story, it definitely makes you look at a pile of old rocks a little differently.
Indeed. Look at the primitive world with new eyes. Maybe the real technology isn't in the microchip. Maybe it's in the stone and the soil.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next deep dive.